Hello everybody, it's Sarah, and against all odds I found the time to sit down once more before I leave on vacation, although you'll only see this after I'm back because I already have all videos covered for vacation. But anyway, sit down to film reviews, which is lucky because I'm sure that I will have forgotten everything I wanted to say once I'm back. And the first of the two reviews I will film today is A Dark and Drowning Tide by Alison Saft. I had an arc of this and I was actually quite excited for this one. I knew nothing going in because I put this on the square for my r/fantasy bingo of reading a book purely based on the cover. But I love both the US and the UK cover for this book. And I, for some reason, thought it was YA. I'm sure that every single time I heard that it was sapphic, it was the first time that I had ever heard it, but I heard it about 5 times, so I constantly forgot that this is queer. But anyway, I was quite excited to get an arc for this and to read it, and sadly it did not live up to my non-existent expectations. I gave this 1.75 stars. And so I want today to do something where I switch it in the way where I usually do it. Usually I start with the negative stuff to end on the positive. However, today I will just start with the positive stuff and end with the negative. But first, a summary. This book follows Lorelei. Lorelei is a folklorist, and it is quite unusual that she is a scholar and folklorist. She wanted to be a naturalist, however, she belongs to a group of people that I once again forgot the name of, that are very much Jewish coded. They, for example, are only allowed to live in certain districts in the city. They are usually not allowed to leave those districts. They live in ghettos. It's just the easiest way to put it. And so Lorelei is an exception in that she was allowed to study at university for a few years. Now, Lorelei wanted to be a naturalist, however, because of her heritage, she was only allowed to become a folklorist, and so she has been collecting especially tales concerning something called the Ursprung. The Ursprung is the mythical source of magic in this world, and the start of the book is when there's an expedition of, I believe, 6 different people plus Lorelei going to the Ursprung, to the source of magic, to make sure that the reign of the current emperor, king, I think it was King Wilhelm, is secured. Because there's quite a few factions fighting against the king, because in fact only in the time of his father he kind of like conquered a couple of different provinces, and within the lifetime of the people currently being part of the expedition there was a big war where most of the members of the expedition fought. So these 6 people leave on an expedition going to the Ursprung. Most of them don't like Lorelei, and in the first night the leader of the expedition is killed, and now everything is in peril. So that's the basic setup of the story. And now let's talk about my issues with it, but also the few things that I thought were positive. I will still try to keep it mostly spoiler free, however there are 1 or 2 things that go into like rough spoiler territory, like general spoiler territory. It's not anything specific. It does pertain to the end of the story, however. So yeah, I will tell you beforehand, but I can't really talk about stuff that really annoyed me without going into that. So, first the positive stuff. While I did see some German-speaking reviewers talk about this in a negative way, I actually overall found the use of German in the story very interesting. So generally speaking, the way the magic system and like the world building is, it's very, very German-centric. The names, most of the names are also very German, so you have Wilhelm, you have Lorelei, you have Sylvia, which are multinational names, I guess, but then you also have Heike, which is just, I don't know, for me Heike is just a really, really German name. You have Johann, which obviously is the German version of John or Jean or whatever. So it's very German, and then you have the magical beings within this world, which are called wilde Leute, which is also actually a term that in specific regions of Germany is used for like kobolds and nixies and all that type of stuff. And so, well, grammatically it wasn't 100% correct all the time. I don't necessarily mind that much, because that's just what happens when you translate things into another language where the grammatical structures are completely different. But overall, I thought that the vibes that were added through the German words were very nice, and there was like consistency to them. I hate when there's words introduced in a different language where it doesn't make sense why you would use that word in a different language. Like, for example, it makes sense that the source of all magic has a specific word, and that's Ursprung. It doesn't make sense, which was the case in back here, I forgot what it's called. After the Forest, I think, why in After the Forest it's called Rathaus and not City Hall. Like, you know, that type of thing. So I actually really enjoyed the vibes of the story. I also found the main character to be quite interesting at the beginning of the story. I liked her setup. I liked that she was very rough around the edges, that she was kind of insecure but also hid that a lot, that she was struggling a lot with her lot in life, etc. That's pretty much it that I can say for positive things. So let's dive into the negative, I guess. First, the least problematic, I'm gonna say, of the negative things is there's just too much going on. So this book, the arc was 260 pages, which isn't a lot. Sure, the ebook isn't always exactly the same as the published copy or the finished copy, but you know, we're somewhere in between 250 to 300 pages probably. Those pages had insurrection, rebellion, the different provinces, the whole thing with the war, which, by the way, the timeline and the age of the characters wasn't clear, because at first I thought they were like in their early 20s. However, most of these people were veterans. I didn't exactly get at what time or how long ago the war was, but I assume they would have been at least 18. And so it's probably been at least 10 years maybe since the war, because they've also, like, they've been studying together at university for 5 to 6 years. So like, maybe they're in their 30s. They don't act like they're in their 30s though. I saw somewhere that they're supposed to be at the end of their 20s. Also doesn't feel like they're at the end of their 20s. They feel very juvenile in a lot of aspects. So yeah, it was just unclear. So you have that whole thing with the dynamic between the provinces, which like every single province had a certain like characteristic ascribed also, and there were the rebellious ones and the other ones. However, the book wasn't long enough to fully go into politics and why certain motivations, because the other main characters or side characters, the main side characters, were all like the heirs to their specific provinces, what their motivations would be based on where they came from. Then you had Lorelei and the whole thing with the people that she comes from, which she has the motivations to hopefully lessen their plight. She wants to like introduce herself as the right-hand woman to the king, or wants to become a counselor to the king, so that she can hopefully have his ear and like improve the plight of her people. So that's there. Then you have the love story. This is a romantic fantasy technically, although I'm not sure I would call it a romantic fantasy, because while the romance seemed to be like the ultimate motivation at the end, it really wasn't during most of the book. It's also very much a, not enemies to lovers, also not rivals to lovers. It's so weird because Lorelei hates Sylvia from the very beginning of the story, and Sylvia just doesn't care at all. And I think it's like slightly supposed to be played as she hates Sylvia because she's so attracted to her. I didn't think it was well set up though, and there was this hint of like Sylvia did something in the past I'll get to the romance, to be honest. So we had the romance, and then we also had the mystery aspect of it, which does tie into other parts of the story, but within the mystery it also wasn't a well done mystery because we weren't really given hints as to who could have done it. We were just told by Lorelai, she came to a conclusion that this person has probably done it based on this, this, and this reason. And so, yeah, way too much going on. Second thing was the characters. I liked Lorelai at the beginning, however, Lorelai at the beginning ends up the exact same as the end. And I can't even go into it exactly why it bothered me so much, because that is actually specific spoiler territory. But yeah, Lorelai doesn't change at all. Sylvia doesn't change at all. Like, none of the characters come to any realizations aside from the fact that Lorelai comes to a realization that she loves Sylvia. So that's just... the character development wasn't well done. The romance also really wasn't well done because, as I said, it's just like weird. There was also some alluded to past that was never fully explained during the story. There was also a thing, by the way, with like something happened with the brother of Lorelai, and it's like this thing that torments her throughout the entirety of the book, which I don't have an issue if you have a main character, even a POV character, who is tormented by something and you don't tell us right away what it is. However, if it gets alluded to too much and you wait too long until it's like fully explained, it gets kind of annoying, not gonna lie. So yeah, didn't really like that part. And then the romance in general sometimes made me really uncomfortable because Lorelai is, as I said, this very Jewish coded character. However, the characteristics she ascribes to herself, it's like very two-faced, cowardly, very negative, and some of these characteristics kind of also fall into the like realm of negative stereotypes or anti-Semitic stereotypes. So that made me a little bit uncomfortable, especially when then confronted with this other character who was like so pure and so amazing. I'm not sure if she was blue-eyed. She wasn't blonde, she was silver-haired though. And like just an angel come to earth who does tell Lorelai that no, she's wrong about herself, etc. And like, I struggle a little bit with saying that the entire dynamic feels very anti-Semitic because I have to be honest, when it comes to anti-Semitism and anti-Semitic tropes, while I do know some things, I don't feel like I know enough to always catch everything or to not also sometimes wrongly catch some things. So it's just, I don't know, it made me uncomfortable. I didn't like it. Also, I hated how Sylvia was somehow portrayed as this pure person. And then, like, there's a scene where they are in the village, where, like, in the province where Sylvia is from. And the people there bring effigies of these Jewish coded people to burn. And they are obviously very prejudiced and very bigoted. And Sylvia doesn't say a single thing. The only thing she does is like, yeah, she does stand in front of Lorelai and like makes sure that Lorelai hides behind her so Lorelai herself doesn't become a victim of the violence that's ensuing. However, like, first of all, the scene itself isn't really portrayed. It ends when Sylvia says, "Get behind me." But Sylvia, like, Sylvia just pushes it aside every time with, yeah, people can be horrible. And I just really didn't like that. And then the last thing, and that's where we get into kind of generic spoiler territory, is the book, and especially the ending of the book, is weirdly pro-colonial. So you have the setup, as I said, that most of these provinces were like united under a crown only one generation back. And so there's obviously still people who kind of want to rebel against the king. And the ultimate goal of the expedition is to bring stability to the crown, to this king who wants to not necessarily oppress these people, but to have these people under his crown. And our good characters, like the quote-unquote good characters, want to support that. They're like, no, stability is actually the best possible way, because while the king isn't like a perfect person, it leads to the least bloodshed or something. And then you have villains who want to free themselves from the crown and have the province be free again, so it's not used in the way that like it's currently being used, and they are portrayed as the villains and as wrong, and it's just, it feels really weird and really rough. And so yeah, in the end I gave it 1.75 stars. I cannot recommend the book, to be honest. I'm gonna get it because I forgot to cancel my Illumicrate, and it's the September book for Illumicrate, but it's whatever. I wanted the items in the box anyway. And so with all of that said, if you've already read the book, tell me in the comments down below, what were your thoughts? If you haven't read the book, do you intend to read it? If you enjoyed this video, maybe think about giving me a thumbs up and also maybe subscribing. All the links to my social media as well as to my book club of Queens, Witches and Valkyries, where I read one adult fantasy book written by a woman or genderqueer person per month, will be left linked down below, so go and check those out. And I hope I'll see you very soon. Bye!